I'll start recording. Hello and welcome to Seeking Focus, episode number 53.
Welcome to Seeking Focus, a podcast that provides photographers and videographers with a place to critically compare technology, share ideas, and enhance their skills.
Hi, welcome to episode 53, guys. Today we've got something exciting. We've got someone that has been around for a long time, and he is a very well known within the film industry, working on multiple different projects, working on a lot of drones, and we've met through droning. So it's a small community and it's a fantastic community. Welcome to the show, Radar Bear Films.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Bear Films. Papa Bear. I call you Papa Bear every time I speak to you. Papa Bear, or what else do I call you? Big Bear?
Big Bear.
I try to call myself a little bear.
Yeah.
Every time we go on the shoot, people ask me, hey, where's Radar? Big Bear is away, but Little Bear is here. That's fine. Thanks for coming on today, man. It should be an interesting show today because you've got a lot of experience with a lot of things and you've been around for a while. Can you give us a bit of a history on yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Marty.
That's right.
Yeah, we've been chatting about doing this for a little while, so things are kind of cruising at the moment, so now's a good time. But I don't know, I got a long story, so try and keep it.
How did you start? Like, what made you get into the sort of film industry and drones and other things? And I'm assuming you've been in it for more than 10 years now, right?
Yeah, I think it's like 15 or around there.
Yeah.
And with drones as well.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you start off with like, I don't know, maybe F450s or 550s, whenever that's, if people remember.
Yeah, so going back, so I'll give you the brief history, but so grew up with a creative family, I guess, musicians and graphic designers, and my dad was a photographer. That's all I've ever known him as, and I did film at high school and always liked it. And I was like, would love to get into this as I got older. And I worked for my dad when I left school for the first 4 years. He had a photography business and he did a lot of weddings and things like that. And I started like in my teens kind of like shooting people's birthdays, and then 21st came, and then we had like people started getting engaged and married, and I kind of just followed that path along and just did it as a hobby really. And I kind of made the wedding stuff into a bit of a business, and Dad used to help me out as well, so he would get jobs for weddings, and then he would take the stills and then he'd pass the client on to me, and I'd tee up the the videography, and I'd go out and started shooting weddings. And as time grew, I kind of like fell out of it and didn't think it was a real kind of job and didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. Ended up becoming a carpenter, and I did that for a number of years. And I had a bad back injury. I think it was like 2010 or something like that. And then I got into flying remote control helicopters. And then for a little bit of time, I worked in a helicopter store, which was in Collingwood here in Melbourne. And the idea was to like, just going to work here for 6 months until my back gets a bit better and see what I'm going to do. And then that company started mingling with some people doing some aerial works with, at the time there was no drones, it was like helicopters. So we were kind of like retrofitting helicopters with mechanical servos and putting DSLRs on them. So it was kind of like the 5D era. When people started shooting with that kind of stuff. So from there, that business ended up becoming what's called XM2, which a lot of people within the drone film world would know who they are. They're a worldwide company shooting all the feature films from Star Wars to, 007, that kind of stuff. From that, a few of the people that were part of that as it was getting off the ground kind of like split away and started their own little drone divisions, I guess, of the film world. And in that, one of those people was me. I teamed up with a guy called Chris Lancel who started Flying Dragon, and then I worked with him for about 3 to 4 years. And I kind of helped him in all facets of his business, trying to, organize quotes and clients and meetings. And so every part of the business that was possible, I was, part of that.
Involved.
He wasn't so much a pilot, so he became like the camera operator of the drone, and then I was the pilot. At the time we had, it was the birth of like Free Fly and Movi, when handheld gimbals started kind of coming out.
Yeah, and they were very expensive back then
as
well.
Back then. And then you had to kind of retro make your own heavy lift drones and things like that. So we had built a few of those. At the time, the Alta, Free Fly Alta wasn't even a thing yet. So we were like making our own custom heavy lift drones to lift cinema cameras and putting big gimbals on them.
Wow.
Back in the day, I used to skate a lot and do, make little movies, escape videos with friends and stuff. So when the gimbals came around, I started doing gimbal work as well, like handheld, not just flying drones. So I had a few jobs doing that as well within the film industry. Chris kind of introduced me to the higher end film industry.
Yeah.
Where just fortunate enough, right place, right time. We started just shooting heaps of car ads because of what we could do with drones.
Yeah.
And there wasn't many people around. There was us, XM2, and Heli Guy at the time. And yeah, so I kind of saw the whole of Australia within the first year of doing drones, like some incredible places. We were just getting flown everywhere. And then from there, I kind of broke away, did my own thing, set up a business with my dad and my brother who work within the industry. And we did that for about 7 years, and that was Harpy Film Services.
Oh, yeah.
So my brother's a bit of a DP director. My dad, did the photography, but he also came a really good like gimbal operator for the drone stuff. And my partner at the time also kind of was like the, front of house person that took the phone calls.
Yeah.
Did the bookings, did the quoting.
Yeah. Girls are good with that.
And kept us organized.
Yeah, for sure.
And then moving forward, we kind of closed that business down and all went separate ways for different reasons, and we're all in different parts of our lives. So we moved on from there. And from there, I went, from having a big studio and staff and all of the things, and I went back home and I was like, I think this is what I want to do now. Just make it simple, work from home.
It's funny you should say, because a lot of people that I interview on these podcasts and everything else, everyone that has interest in this sort of type of industry, you know what I mean? It's not just, just, I want to do something. I want to do this because it's money, you know what I mean? It's, it's not like that. We do it initially because we actually really love it and enjoy it.
Yeah. And
essentially, we don't look at the money component first, and then if we need to still pay bills, but it's kind of different type of, you know what I mean?
It is. It's a very passionate job. I think I feel very fortunate to be in the position that I am.
Yeah.
There's still times where it's like you can be struggling and you're like, oh my God, I don't have any bookings in the calendar for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, like 2 days go past, the phone starts calling, and then you've got 5 jobs.
Yeah,
so it's like, it's very feast and famine, people will say.
Yeah. And you know what? Like exactly the same. I think it must be the industry itself, because I feel like I'm in the same boat. Like I can be without a job for a week or two, and then all of a sudden I get 5, 6, 7 calls at once.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are these people just calling straight away, and they couldn't probably ring me a week ago, and the jobs are like, oh yeah, can you be in New South Wales tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's just like, well, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? But yeah, I totally understand and totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really fun job. I do every now and then. I kind of like, I'm on a really cool film set or something, and I've got a moment where they might be shooting some ground stuff, and I have to stand back and wait.
Yeah.
And the reality kicks in, and you're just like, look at where I am and what I'm doing and what I'm getting paid to.
Mate, I can tell you
to just hang out with all these people.
100%. Yeah. And I can tell you there is at least, mate, in Melbourne itself, there'll be thousands of people just to be able to go on that set and do what you do. And they'll be like, mate, I'll do it for free.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's a lot of that. I get a lot
and we're getting paid for it, you know what I mean? So it's great.
I get a lot of people like DMing me, like younger guys, kind of like, how can I get a job with you? I'd love to work with you.
Yeah.
They send me their reels and what they've been doing, and it's really cool to see those younger people kind of come up, and I've actually taken some of those kids on and kind of taught them, and trying to get them through the ranks and give them some good education in operating drones within the film industry. And I think Josh Hoskin, who you've met, who's a really good FPV pilot, and he's kind of like the latest person, I guess, that I've try to take through the ranks and kind of school and guide. I met
Josh at the FPV party that I did in Trentham, and when you guys rocked up, he was flying, and he was flying the whole course of the drone FPV course that we set up, and he was smashing it, and I was just like, dude, how good are you? You know what I mean? But the young kids these days, they're willing to spend their time and effort, and then they're really good on the sticks with hand and eye coordination as well. So it's fantastic. But he's a really cool guy.
Yeah, they really pick up that stuff really, really quickly and easily, those younger guys. Yeah. We were young too once.
I know. Yeah.
We were those guys.
It just takes like extra 5 minutes, that's all.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to know more about what you actually do from day to day, essentially. And if there's, because you mentioned that you got into more of the sort of car industry and car commercials and other things. Yeah. Can you set the scene for me to be able to say, hey, this is like, can you remember one of the first jobs that you did, and how did you get it? And like, just more or less, like, if anyone wants to sort of get into it, and later on I want to talk about how difficult it is, but it's one of those things where you kind of, I feel like you almost have to have contacts to be able to get any type of work like that as well. Can you give me more information on that?
Yeah, I think networking is like the biggest key, I think, especially when you're first starting out. A lot of my work now comes through recommendation and just those older contacts who I established years ago, and it just kind of grows from there, I guess. But you still at some stage have to, like, jump on the phone, get onto some emails and do some marketing. And the platform keeps changing, obviously, with social media and things like that. But back in the day, like, drones were really new, and a lot of the companies that we were approaching at the time when I was with Flying Dragon had, like, no one had used drones yet. Like, a lot of them had like, we've seen them, we've seen what's going on, and we're not sure. And a lot of people got scared with some of the early gimbals because they would like wig out on set, and then all of a sudden they can't use it, and they were relying on that piece of equipment to do the job. And I think that kind of set a bit of a bad stigma. So people were very like, well, what's the drones? How does it work? How long do they fly for? What's it going to be like on set? Because they hadn't experienced or used them before. So I had to actually think then, like, what was the first car job we did? But it was a production company called Nice Bike, who are here in Melbourne, and they had a contract with Jeep. And basically, Chris kind of knew some people within the drone industry. I won't get into how he knew people, but he had already kind of worked in the industry a little bit, and he had a few contacts and knew people of people that would recommend, hey, we should try these guys or those people. So I just started making a list, like, we've got to go meet these people, these guys, they're over here. Started looking up production companies and who was doing what. And then it was basically either a cold email or a cold call just to say, hey, we're doing drones, would you like to use it? We see you've got a contract with Jeep. So we met up with Nice Bike. They were kind of reluctant. We showed them a bit of a show reel, which we had put together when you're starting out a business. So what we did is we just started taking the drones out, meeting up with friends, organising like a nice car or whatever it was that we could go shoot, and just mocking up shots to build a show reel, basically. And a lot of people still do that today. And
well, you kind of have to, though, because I've noticed when I was starting off as well, and hold that thought, but I had to build up my portfolio. You know what I mean? When I started off in FPV, it's I have to do a couple of cheaper jobs essentially to be able to show what I can do. Yeah. And exactly the same, 15 odd years ago when you started off with that as well, you have to show people that you're capable and you got the equipment to do it.
Yep. Yeah, you gotta show them something. They won't book you just from your word of mouth.
Yeah,
You've got
that's
to
right.
show them that you're capable and what you can do is up to their standard. And so we put together a reel and we showed the guys, and they kind of like, they didn't say too much about it. And it was kind of when we walked away from the meeting, I was like, oh, I don't know if they're going to call us, you know, like. But then I think it was about 2 weeks after that, and they contacted us and they're like, oh, we got this Jeep commercial that we're going to shoot. We'd love to use a drone.
Wow.
And I was like,
There you
cool.
go.
So there it was, and we were shooting a commercial for Jeep. It went really well, considering like we hadn't been on set before. But going back in terms of like a memorable shoot that sticks in my mind, where it was my first experience on somewhat a bigger film set, and it was for the Seacliff Ferry, I think it was, down in Sorrento, that travels over to Geelong.
Okay.
And we had it was a heavy lift drone. It was a custom built drone that I'd built myself. Had a big gimbal on it. At the time, I think we were using, it was called a company called Gremsy, which kind of like at the time was a competitor to the Movi. I don't even know if they're around anymore, but the gimbal was a little bit cheaper and it still seemed to perform quite well. We had a Movi at the time as well, but the Gremsy made a little bit bigger gimbal, so we could fit a bit bigger gear in the gimbal. So we had a red Dragon or something on there. And anyway, the Seacliff Ferry goes out. We launched this massive drone, and the director, you know, we hadn't really conversated or communicated too much about what had to happen. And it was kind of not until we were in the sky, he starts explaining, like, you need to fly down from one end of the boat to the other. They had some talent on the top of the boat. A woman that had a surfboard, she walked up and down, and we're trying to film her. And he was calling action and reset and come back. And he was literally yelling and screaming at me. And I was like, I'm not really a nervous kind of person, but at the time I was like, is this what it's like? Like, you know, sometimes you see the movies and you do see the directors yelling and screaming. So I was like, oh shit, I don't know if this is what I want to do. Anyway, we got the shots, and at the end he changed his personality and he really loved what we had done. And we flew the drone 1.2 kilometers offshore at one point.
Whoa.
And I was like pretty nervous, thinking, oh my God, there's like all this money out there and it could just fall out of the sky. And I built this thing, so I wasn't super confident. And anyway, it all went fine. And that was like my first proper shoot where we had directors calling the shots and telling us what to do, and we had to complete a task that they had asked.
So you essentially started off with, you know, a car, then the boat. So anything that's potentially moving, you want to be able to be there and film it and just smash it out. Anything automotive seemed to become fun. And I remember when I first started with Chris, and I just built the custom drone, and without a camera on it, we went to the park to fly it. And coming from flying remote control aircraft, which is, you know, we do loops and go upside down and have a bit of fun, this thing only stayed upright and we just kind of hovered it around the sky. And I remember walking away going, well, it was a bit boring. You know, we didn't really do much. You don't have to like keep your eyes on it because it has GPS and it just hovers there and things like that. And then it wasn't until there was this other job we did, which was more of a social media thing, which was kind of like a running event that they were about to have, and we had to film like a bit of a marketing piece for it to get entrance in, right? And we went to this abandoned warehouse, and it wasn't until someone gave me instructions on what they wanted me to do with the drone. Once there was a task and I had to try and do what someone asked me to do, then there was the element of fun and a challenge. And that's what excited me about the industry. It was like, oh, now what can I do with the drone? And like, can we fly it between those trees? Can we go through the gate? How close can I get to the vehicle? You know, make it more dynamic and exciting and then more stressful.
And it wasn't until that happened that I got more excited about this job and what I was going to do.
Look, I think having that DOPs and director of photography and, you know, people that have a vision, and you're trying to put that vision in a film or digital or whatever you want to do, that's where the challenge comes in.
Yep.
And and it's a funny one because you've got a lot of experience in that. And when you rang me a couple of weeks back saying, hey, Marty, can you do, I'm busy in the morning, can you just come and help me with this job? And I was like, shit, yeah, I'll jump onto it. No worries. I haven't done a big production before, but hey, I'll jump onto it. And rocked up, and just to paint a bit of picture, it was for, give me
It was for Fuso, which is a truck company that's owned by Mitsubishi.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a full-scale truck, like a semi-trailer, big rig. that you had to shoot.
And then you sold it to me by, hey, you just have to, be there, do a little pull-up shot. They're going to turn around, and the idea is, we're going to, in post-production, we're going to do a couple of containers or whatever it's going to be, and there's nothing going to be major. I said, all right, cool. Look, I haven't done a big production before, but yeah, mate, I'd love to get my hands dirty. No worries at all. So just to paint the picture, I rocked up, was a sunrise shoot. So as we all know, sunrises are a lot shorter than sunsets. and then
you got to set up in the dark.
Yeah, got to set up in the dark and get everything organized and everything else. And then rocked up, and one of the director of DOPs, and they go, all right, everyone's here. We're still waiting for radar. And I was like, no, I'm the little bad today, I can do it, And he goes, oh, okay, cool, no worries. And he kind of already looked me up and down that time. So he's like, I haven't worked with you before. I don't know what you're capable of. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. But he goes, okay. And then we'll set up the drone. The drone had some issues as well. Josh was setting up a few other bits and pieces. And me being obviously fairly green to this sort of stuff, I had no idea. I'm just going to fly the drone up and down, no worries, it's an Inspire 3. Yeah, looking at a $25,000-$30,000 drone. I can do it. I've got my own, no worries. And then, we set up, started flying, sunrise is coming up. And, there was the road, basically, that we had to drive on. It wasn't closed as well, right?
That's right. When you did it, it wasn't really closed. And it was maybe like 2 kilometers worth of road that was nice and straight.
Yeah. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, a lot of people use that road to get to work. So then we sort of take the drone up, and then, the truck is almost ready to go. Hang on. There's a car coming. Okay, wait. So the drone's up, waiting, 5 minutes going past. Then, all right, there's a shot. Oh, no, there's another car coming through. We can't, you know what I mean? So there was a couple of things, and then they turn around to me and they go, all right, cool. Just make sure you fly in front of the truck. Then you make the path across the road, and then we'll pan with a gimbal, the other way. We catch it from, and he was giving me these instructions. And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
then he goes, no, that's not why it's going to be done. It's got to be done this way. And I was just like, oh, shit, okay, man. It was just like, so to be honest with you, the pressure on that set, because behind me I had 12 people watching what I was watching on the drone. Then you had the DOP not being happy about certain aspects of the job or whatever else.
Yeah, certain moves that you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And then I was there for good 4 hours, maybe 5 hours, all up. And every single second of that shoot was stressful, to be honest with you. So to me, it was like, shit, I'm trying to do my best job, but, how do you do a best job if you've got 12 people literally looking over your shoulder? And then you can see there was 2, director of photographies, and they were basically saying, this is how this got to be done, that's got to be done. And, we want to make sure that the sunset or sunrise is on the back of the truck and this and that. And I was just like, okay, I'm not so sure if I want to do this anymore. So give me more info on that.
I remember when I was telling you about the job and the information that I had received from the director and the DP, I asked them what the shots were, and from what they were saying were quite simple. It was just like a front 3/4 tracking. It seemed like it was 10 meters away from the truck. There's some side profile stuff, and that was basically, there was a lift in there that was very basic. And I was like, oh, Marty can handle this, I'm sure, Yeah. So it wasn't until I knew I was on another job, and then you called me when you had wrapped, and then you were telling me all of what was going on, and then you sent me a screen grab of one of your shots.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? I was like, is that an 18 mil?
Yeah.
Because for those of you that don't know, if it's an 18 mil and the truck looks really close, then he's really close.
Really close. Yes.
So and low to the ground. I think you were maybe like
At one
10
stage,
inches off the ground.
Oh yeah, there was one shot at one stage that I had to fly through the grass.
Yeah.
To be able to get that really low tracking shot.
Yep.
And I still got that shot. The gimbal actually copped so much beating.
Yeah.
Because the gimbal kept on getting hit
Flicking
by
through the grass. Yeah.
And at one stage, it actually flicked really badly. And I was just like, shit, I hope I didn't break it. But it was fine. I mean, it can handle it. But, I was just like, what the hell am I doing here? You know what I mean? This is so out of my depth.
Yep.
It's just, So then, you came in the afternoon for the afternoon show for the sunset. And I felt like, what the fuck did I just do wrong in the morning? Because you made it look so easy. You know what I mean? And then I kind of looked at it and like, just walk us through that shot if you can, because then, there was a couple of things that you were not comfortable with doing as well, but then you suggested something else. So that experience comes into play when, you've got obviously years of experience shooting these trucks and cars and boats and whatever else, where you go, okay, we're trying to achieve this shot, but we can do it another way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess like with my experience in what I've done in my time, I've kind of almost done every possible scenario that you could think of.
Yeah.
So when I come across something now, there's something I can refer it to and go, I did this on that job
that's right.
or this job, or we did it like this and it made it easier. And that was a learning process. I might not never have started it like that, but over the time I've worked out, if you do it and fly the drone backwards, that makes it easier this way.
Yeah.
So what was happening was they wanted to replicate the shots that you had done in the day. And the only shot that I found that looked really difficult was that 18 mil shot. So to run you guys through it, it was like 18 mil lens, full frame sensor we're on. So the truck was maybe 2 meters away from the lens, and low to the ground, looking up to give the truck that beefiness and make it look hero and tough, But what makes it tricky is the drone is leading the truck. So if I brake on the drone or I do anything wrong, there's 2 meters between the truck and the drone, and it can take it out.
That's right. Zero error.
Yeah, they can't error. So the best way that I would normally do that is like fly the drone in reverse and be looking at the truck and the drone's just pulling backwards. Because the setup that we had, because that changes everything, where we're standing, where the monitors are, where everyone needs to be, that can change how things need to be done. So when we spun the drone around to fly it in the direction of the way the truck's moving, then the arse of the drone ended up in the frame of the camera.
That's right.
But then what we found out is like once you accelerate and the drone's, in its attack form, then the arse of the drone's out of the shot. That's so then it became a thing of like, I can just fly forward. I guess in explaining to people how like my brain goes through that process is like, I'm flying the drone, I'm looking through the FPV camera to look at the road, looking at my height constantly, and then also got another monitor that's there, which is looking at the actual shot to see my distance from the truck to make sure, hey, if I'm going to get too close, I can just bail out of this, pull out to the right or pull away faster. And you're just putting a lot of trust into the driver's hands as well to go, hey, if it looks like you're going to hit the drone, back off if you can, and those types of things. So every scenario is different. And that was, I felt really bad after you called me and you were like, oh, this is what I had to do. And I was like, I had no idea. I'm so sorry.
And you know what, like, I totally understand. This was like a couple of months ago now. You rang me up and you say, hey, I had a bit of a problem with my drone. I crashed it with my Inspire and you broke the gimbal on it. And then I said to him, I said, show me the logs, see what actually happened. Yeah. And then you were flying in sports mode or attitude mode, whatever. There was no sensors, no nothing. And obviously there was few issues in the area as well with reception and other things as well. And I was like thinking to myself back then, I was like, what the hell is he flying the drone in sports mode with no sensors, no, any insurance essentially? And then once I did that shoot with the Fuso trucks, I was like, Yeah, okay. Makes sense. You know what I mean? And it's the experience and the knowledge of the actual drone, what the drone's capable of and how it can handle, you know what I mean? The quick, the really low angle shots, there's so many different options that we have, and the tracking shot, because if for people that don't know, Inspire 3 is one of those drones where you have to have two operators. Well, you don't have to, but that's where you can get the best shot out of this drone.
Yeah.
Where one person's on a gimbal and the other person's actually on the drone, flying the drone, making sure the drone is safe and everybody else is safe. So yeah, it was such an experience that I was just like, okay, I don't want the Inspire anymore. I'm happy to just fly with the Mavic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like slowly you overcome your demons and you kind of just keep doing whatever you're doing. But that was one of my highlights anyway. Tell me about your recent highlights that you've done, and because I've heard you've worked on some bigger sort of feature films recently on with Melbourne, and there's been a few exciting things.
Yeah, so back in the day when I had Harpy, we used to have heavy lift drones, and we used to attack some of those bigger jobs. And since I've become the Bear film, I've gotten rid of the bigger drones and so forth. And maybe that's a time for another discussion, with the bigger drone stuff. But so if I do like heavy lift work these days, XM2, who I started with, they employ me as a freelance pilot sometimes for some of the bigger jobs. And I've also teamed up with them where I've needed a bigger drone for a job and they've come on and helped me, which has been a really, really cool experience. And those guys have tons of knowledge and tech, and they're really, really good at what they do. And yeah, one of those jobs recently, which is War Machine, which is with a director called Patrick Hughes. The film is out on Netflix now, and it I think it took was the highest view count in the first week of a Netflix show being aired.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Now, the guys from XM2, they worked on the film itself with the heavy lift drone and so forth. And then what can happen with some films is that they'll do all the shooting that goes into the edit process, and then they'll work out that like, you know what, we're actually missing this angle or this shot, or, and is it possible, can we just go out and do some pickups and complete these shots that will help piece the story together. Mm-hmm. So that happened. They weren't available, and they said, can you go out and we'll send some guys with you and get the pickups that they need. Yep. It was with the Inspire, which is like, I'm very comfortable with flying. I can do whatever I need to do with it. And it was a really cool experience. And a lot of the shots that we did were to do with VFX shots. So within the film, there's this like, big mecha robot thing that is part of the film. Yep. And obviously that's VFX and CGI. So we had to mock up certain shots of like tracking, and you're just tracking nothing. Basically. And you just got to imagine that like,
yes, there's something there.
There's the robot coming down, and you've got to, the director will stand there and he'll be like, it's going to be about this high in the frame. And in some cases you'll have VFX team with us there to help with all of that. And they can kind of look at the shot once it's completed or help design it and say, yep, that's going to work. Next time don't wrap around the tree because it's going to be hard to put it in there. Excuse me. So you've got that kind of team that's there. And we did a couple of cool little things that were like, we had to have, it's an army style film. So there's a lot of army guys and military in there. So we had guys with guns and like a bit of a team. And we had to shoot them on the grass, which was green. And they were kind of using the grass as a green screen to then take them out and put them into another scene. So a lot of the shots that I was a part of was to do with like the pickups, but also a lot of VFX was introduced into them. Yeah. So I still haven't seen the film yet to watch it. I'm always strapped for time. So
yeah, I know. I've got the same problem.
Yeah, and the wife always wants to watch, a different show, and we've been watching some stuff. And then just this week gone, what's today, Thursday. So on Monday, I did some shots for a really good friend who's a DP on a film called Who Needs Love Songs. And it's a Melbourne film, and the director and the DP are both friends of mine, and the director also wrote the film. and it's a very Aussie based film, a lot of action, a lot of drama, and it looks really, really good from what I've seen. I've seen the shorts to it so far, but it was just one of those cool shoots where we went out to the Yangs, and a lot of what we had to do was just tracking cars basically. So there was a couple of cars that were part of the film, which kind of were, a bit hero-ish to the film. So they almost become their own characters. So they need to be heroed. So my partner Alice, she does gimbal a lot with me on the drone. She's one of them. I really trust her, and she can do some really technical gimbal work. So myself and her went out with the director and Sham, the DP, and we went out to the Yangs, and it was an evening style shoot where we went out and we kind of recce'd earlier in the day at lunchtime and found some locations. I'd shot out there a bunch of times. So he sent me some sample shots of what he would like it to look like, Sham, the DP. And immediately I was like, out here, I know this road. Yeah. There's this spot. If the sun's setting here, it's going to look like this. I sent him some screen grabs and things. And then we went out, and it was just one of those days where all the stars aligned. The weather was perfect. There was no wind. Yeah. The sun was coming down in the right spot, and it just looked epic. Wow. And there was no rushing, and it was really relaxed. And we just had a really good time. And we, while you're there, you're just chatting and talking, and it almost doesn't feel like you're working at all. And then the last shot, we drove back from there into the city, and there were some shots in Port Melbourne that we had to achieve with a different vehicle, and it had to be a nighttime shoot. And although the Inspire 3, I always think, every time I put it up and look at the city at nighttime, it just looks so awesome if you get the right settings, and I was kind of explaining that to Sham. And then when I put it up again, it just blows me away still, where I just look at the picture and I go, look at that.
Looks awesome.
That looks awesome.
Yeah.
And we got the shots, and it was just a really good night. Went off and we finished up, and that was the end of that day. And then the next morning I had to get up super early, like 4 o'clock a.m. and head out to the Yarra Valley, and I was shooting for a documentary in Yarra Valley of hot air ballooning. And I've shot hot air balloons many times before, and it's just I was already excited the night before. So I was like, when I got there and I saw what the weather was doing, I was like, this is just a continuation of yesterday,
How lucky can you be?
Yeah. And I had the Mavic 4 on this one. It was just single up. But it was kind of a nice difference to have go from this big little crew, like a big crew, to just being on your own with a few people, because documentaries are usually like that. There's not a big crew. And having balloons, and I've worked with the balloon guys before, and the weather was perfect. And then the shots that I got, and it was the first time kind of working with the Mavic 4 properly. I've done a couple of little shoots, but nothing serious. And this was kind of the first time that I got to use it a lot, and using the new codec that it has. And then when I got home the next day, I was downloading the footage, and I actually put it together. I actually sent you a clip, and I just kind of put it together, and I was like, oh wow, man, that just
I must say,
definitely showreel worthy.
Yeah, footage. The Mavic 4 Pro, I use it pretty much all the time. It's my go-to. It's such a clean image as well. It's almost to a point where we don't need the Inspire 3 anymore.
It's kind of almost,
unless you want a specific type of shot that you need to achieve with a dual operator.
A dual operator, yeah.
But the stuff that you sent through to me, it looked fantastic.
It was really cool. Yeah. And when I first bought the drone, I was like, I didn't want the drone. It's not like I needed the drone. But what happens in our industry is where I don't decide on what drone I'm going to use on the job. I might have a say and give them my feedback, but usually production will depict what they want to use. So I just had a lot of people saying, we want a Mavic 4, we want a Mavic 4. And I'm never one to just go out and buy it as soon as it comes out.
I did.
Yeah. with the Inspire, yes, but because I know that's going to be used. But Mavic stuff is not something that I do often, where it's definitely single op, although that's coming more of a thing. But I didn't really want it. It got to the stage where a few people were asking for it, and then I kind of lost a couple of jobs because I didn't have one. And they were actually like, well, we need someone with a Mavic 4, and such and such will do it for this price. Like, I don't have a Mavic 4, so they just go with the other person. But a job came along, which was Lacoste, it was, for the AO. and they were doing some social media stuff and
Australian Open for people.
yeah, and they're a French company who the production was. Lacoste's French as well, so they came over. I dealt with them before they got here, just through emails and chatting to them. And then it was just supposed to be like a half-day little shoot on the Yarra near Flinders Street Station.
Yep.
And what they had done is they converted like the Arbory afloat into a mini like tennis court, and they were doing some shots on there. It was really cool. And then, so bought the Mavic for that. It was only supposed to be a half-day shoot, but I also had some other jobs that were Mavic 4 related. And then Lacoste ended up being almost like a 3-day shoot because they really loved what we did, and they just kept wanting us to come back and keep shooting some stuff. Fantastic. So in the end, it almost paid for the Mavic 4 doing the 3 days, and
100%.
It was like, well, it's worth it. And and what was funny was at the time, I didn't realize that the bigger codec that it had, which was the All-I codec, which is what someone's told me it's actually the same codec as an FX6.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like 1200 megabits per second. But I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. And I was like a bit disappointed. But now that codec is available in there and I'm been using that, and that's what I shot the hot air balloons and stuff on. And
I can tell you it takes a lot of space on it.
Yeah, heaps of space. It's so a big data. Yeah. And it's more data than ProRes. So there's a lot of information there.
It is, yeah. But it's fantastic images. So it's like...
Yeah. And now you can, because I think the 3 you could only use ProRes for the main camera, whereas the 4 it runs on all 3.
Correct.
So you don't have to change your codecs and things.
There is a couple of restrictions on the 4. I've noticed if I'm shooting really tight, 160, whatever. 160,
yeah, the 163, which is a really weird.
Yeah. It's only a 2.8 as well, so you can't actually adjust the aperture on it, which kind of it is where it is because you chuck on a couple of ND filters or whatever. But the most flexibility is definitely with the wide angle, the 28mm, and the closer you get, it sort of gets you a bit more restrictive. But look, it's understanding because of the fact that the sensor is actually much bigger on the main camera, and the other two cameras are sort of a bit smaller, but the quality is still pretty freaking
the
good.
quality is a lot better on the telephoto lenses on the 4 than the 3 is. Yeah, I found with the 3, I think it was it's 100 and something mil on the 3. It got a little bit funky and didn't look a bit artificial.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas the Mavic 4 seems to be nice and clear, and it's got a lot of clarity in it. And you can't...
That's one of the reasons why I bought it, because I had the Mavic 3 and I had the 2 lenses only. So I had the wide and then the zoom, and the zoom was just unusable, for instance. And even the Mavic 3 Pro, it was still really good, but there was still a couple of restrictions. And I was like, do I upgrade just to Mavic 3 Pro, or do I just go stuff it and just go for the 4? Yeah. And now I just go stuff it, just go for the Pro, future-proof myself, and then just use that.
Because I almost went down the path of like, there were some good prices on Marketplace for Mavic 3 Pro, because I was like, a lot of people want RAW, right? They want, not RAW, but ProRes at least. And the Mavic 3 did that. So I contemplated like, should I buy a 3 secondhand or should I get the 4? And in my thinking, I'm the kind of person like, just stay with the times and get the latest, because eventually that'll be outdated and so forth.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like, I think the Mavic 4 Pro will last you for next 3-4 years minimum. I think
so. I mean, there's a lot of people still wanting the 3 because it does ProRes.
Yeah, 100%.
But what's interesting is DJI aren't really talking about this All-I codec and making it a big deal. I had to find it out for myself and just go, oh, okay, it does this. Oh, that's what it is. So now I can use that as a bit of a sales tool when someone's saying, oh, we want a Mavic because we want ProRes, so can you have a Mavic 3? And I can now explain to them, send them some test footage and go, actually, this codec's actually really good, if not maybe better.
Well, for people that don't know, the codec is much easier to work with from a editing point of view, and editors have a lot more flexibility in post-production to be able to superimpose or VFX certain parts in, you know what I mean? So that definitely is definitely helpful, you know what I mean? So, anyway, hey, there was a lot of options a lot of points that you wanted to have a chat with. What else can we touch on? Because people will be interested to hear all your, like, the movies like Mad Max that you worked on, the what else? What do we have here? Recently there was a movie in Melbourne that was filmed, wasn't it?
Yeah, Empire State. With, had an actor in there, Gerard Butler.
That's right. Yeah, but then the thing is, you didn't actually do much droning on that.
No. So XM2 actually did the drone on Empire State, and I ended up on it just due to the fact that I had a good friend of mine working in the industry. He's become like a bit of a car person. I don't even know what the role is, but they're in charge of organizing every vehicle for a film.
Wow.
So like, let's say it was War Machine or whatever, and they're like, we need 2 tanks and 2 helicopters and a Chinook and this, and we need 10 taxis, and they need to look.
Let's just pick that up from higher.
Yeah, they need to look like American vehicles.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy that has to organize all of that. So he becomes that like vehicle producer type person. So he organizes like the transportation of them. Now on a film like Empire State, it was a big film. It had to look like it was in New York. They shot it in Melbourne. They did a lot of set dressing in the city and to make it look that way. And it had a lot of vehicles. So there was a lot of there was SWAT team stuff. There was one of the hero vehicles was this big American fire truck with the ladder on it and stuff. And then
I don't know, for those people who remember, do you remember Seinfeld with the Kramer at the back?
Yeah.
I was going anyway. That's
I
beside the
love
point.
Seinfeld. And so when you have the vehicles, becomes a big department when it's all these vehicles. So not only do they need people to move them and set dress them, and we have to take vehicles that represent police cars that don't have lights and things on them. So that becomes a big department of like, okay, we've got to sticker them, get lights, put them on, do all that kind of stuff. And then on a set, when they're actually shooting, then all of the vehicle people go to set. We have to like put the cars somewhere. So in the city, what we did is like the production had to hire out car parks to put all these vehicles the night before, and then we would come in, and then the vehicle department would be given a diagram basically of what the set needs to look like that evening. And then we would have to then go, once the road had been shut down, and we shut down the trams as well in the city of Melbourne, and then the vehicle team would come in and we would drive the vehicles and move them into position for each shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in some cases, they're like, the doors need to be open on this one, sirens on that one, lights on this one. And then so even though it sounds like a simple job, there's like a lot of things and components.
A lot of moving parts. Yeah.
Some of these cars, the batteries might go flat, so we've got to jump them, or, you need to know, because they're American vehicles, like if, the lead actor might bump the window wipers and he doesn't know how to turn them off, so we have to run over and turn it off.
Wow, okay.
Because they don't know where the switches are.
So you're basically not flying, but you were essentially just an assistant with a car moving and all the and your vehicle kind of assistant. That's quite a cool actually position, isn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty. What I liked about it is when you're flying drones, it can become very demanding. Slightly stressful, I guess, depending on what you're doing. There's a lot riding on you, and so there's pressure.
Definitely.
When you're doing a job like vehicles, it's because of coming from the pressure part of the job, coming down to a job that becomes so simple and so easy. It's very relaxed and very enjoyable, and you can sit back, watch what they're doing, and take it all in, and you can have more conversations with people, more coffee, more food, it's a good job.
That sounds like my kind of job as well, because I mean, I love all that stuff as well. And but the funny thing is, like, the reason why I'm into sort of drones as well a lot, because I came from technology background. So for uni, I did like scientific photography. And this was a long time ago. I'm not even going to say how long ago, but I love all the tech, you know what I mean? So now when the new drone comes out, I'm just like, what can I do with this? This is awesome, So, and I think you are very similar as well. You love all that stuff as well. And, it's great to work on something that's going to be on the big screen as well. You know what I mean? That's just a huge thing. I'm just looking at the notes here. There is a couple of good questions here. You made actually a good point. What makes a good drone operator? What do you think? Like, I think I'm okay, but watching you do your stuff with Inspire 3, I was like, I'm shit compared to what you're doing, man. It's just like, it just takes that extra edge to be able to get those specific images. What do you think makes a great operator for drones?
I think The biggest key, I think, regardless of the flying, is having the like film knowledge, I guess, in like one, how to take a photo, how to like, do you actually pick up a ground camera and shoot stuff? Have you storyboarded before? And have you done stuff like that rather than, not even talking about drones? And then you take that information and you know how to frame up something, how the story pieces together, what's going to make this shot work with the previous shot that they need and where it's going to lead into. And having all of that knowledge and understanding, and then taking it to the drone and going, well, now not only do I have all of that component to it, I'm also an exceptional pilot, and I can move this craft wherever you need it to be and get whatever it is that you need. And then the flying capabilities just come from being able to fly remote control helicopters and planes and things to a high standard. And I don't think people realize too, because these days you buy a Mavic, it hovers itself, you just put it up and you can, talk to your mate and it's still there when you look back. Not always, but most of the time. And it seems somewhat easy to do if you've never done it before and you've got some kind of gist on how to do remote control stuff. But flying helicopters and planes, and then getting behind a drone that now has this stabilization capability of like GPS and so forth. Like when I fly, I try to have all of that stuff off. I want to have like a connection to the drone and be able to like move it where I need, whenever I need to. I want to be able to skim the gimbal, like you said, in the grass, or fly the blades really close to this tree. And with all those safety features enabled, you can't do that because it stops the drone from doing it, and it interrupts what you're doing. So sometimes even having GPS is like a hindrance to me, because it like, when you back off, it breaks the drone and it's like fighting you a little bit. It's okay in certain scenarios. But I think if I was to give anybody advice, is like, go get a remote control helicopter. And if you can master that be capable, then that will...
Flying upside down, sideways and other things. It's dangerous,
excel,
but
that will excel your flying capabilities for sure.
No, I think I totally agree with you as well. Having that knowledge of the triangle, the exposure triangle, your ISO, your aperture, your shutter speeds and 180 rules and all the other bits and pieces, the rule of thirds and all the other sort of bits and pieces. It's so important. I mean, I fly with one of the guys and he knows a lot about drones, but he doesn't know jack about the exposure, aperture, and what, say, how would the image look on a 50mm at 2.8 or 1.8 compared to 50mm at F11, he doesn't know that, and I said to him, I said, mate, you need to learn all that stuff, because I need to be able to pilot this drone and I need you to be on the gimbal. And he's like, I don't know, but it's just like there's a basic of knowledge of that stuff to be able to get understanding of, and then put that into practice. And and also, like you said, flying, like if you get a Mavic or even Mini 3 or Mini 4 or whatever else, it's a small drone, but it's all assisted. You've got your GPS, you've got your master shots, you've got everything else, where the Inspire 3 doesn't have any of that. You have to be able to perform all those maneuvers and all those different things with it. And the other day I was flying up in Geelong, chasing the speedboats, the whole 150 k's an hour.
I was messaging you. And
that was such a interesting thing. And you were saying, because like I've crashed my Inspire 3 once, my own fault, but since then I'm kind of a bit wary of putting it into ADI mode or a sports mode or whatever else. And I found that with that drone, you have to do it. You have to be able to put it in a sports mode, turn all the sensors off, and just go for it.
Gun it.
You know what I mean? And gun it. And I mean, I was reaching, 95 k's an hour with those speedboats, and the motors were screaming. Like, you could see a little circle on the bottom of the remote controller saying, hey, back off, back off, back off, because, and I was just pushing it, and those boats were going 150 k's an hour. And you know what? If I had my sensors on, there's not even close that I can come to that.
That's
You know what I
it.
mean? So I had to put in the ADI mode. I had to put in the sports mode. Even sports mode was much slower than the ADI mode. You know what I
I
mean?
found that too. Like, yeah, ADI mode seems to be that little bit quicker, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, because I thought sports mode was supposed to be faster. But yeah, I think the angle of attack just is greater in
Well, you
ADI
turn
mode.
off all the GPS as well. So you turn the sensors off and
Yep.
the GPS, essentially with the
Yeah, because
ADI mode.
sports mode has GPS
still.
enabled
Yeah,
still.
yeah.
It just enables the drone to travel quicker.
Correct. Yeah.
But ADI mode is no GPS, so
Mm.
the drone coasts. So that's what I like about it. So you can, when you're attacking a car and you're front 3/4 and you're leading the car, and you might be doing 60, 70 kilometers an hour, to keep things smooth, ADI mode seems to be the best, because you can, if you back off the stick, it doesn't pull the drone up, it doesn't brake, it still is coasting at whatever speed it was coasting at. It will slowly slow down, but it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And that, to me, seems to be smoother. And if you've got a great gimbal operator that's operating camera, then those little hiccups of the drone, doing some weird things, don't show up in the camera anyway. But if you can keep it smoother too, then it makes the camera operator's job a lot easier also, and then they're going to capture better footage.
Yeah. And you know what? Like what you say is totally true, because there's so much knowledge that goes into this, and so much experience, and so much attitude almost, that no wonder why we charge how much we charge. You know what I mean? Sorry, that's my phone.
That's a job. You better answer that,
No,
Marty.
that's my wife.
You really better answer that.
She can wait now. But essentially, like, actually speaking of my wife, every time I have a job and she's like, "Oh, you're not working. Can you just make sure you do the dishes before you go, and you do the washing before you know?"
I get that a lot.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
I'm like, when I come back from like a big shoot and it's been like a cool experience, let's say. Like I went to Central Australia recently to film a documentary in the desert with cowboys rounding up cattle, and we were there for 9 days or 10 days or something like that. And I'm posting photos, and I'm in cool environments and so forth. And then when I get home and I'm exhausted, because we've just done crazy amount of hours per day.
Not mentioning that you're sleeping in a little shack.
hardly sleeping. And then I also feel obliged to with the crew, like that's like that, because you become family after a few days, because you know everybody and you're eating dinner together. And in this scenario, we couldn't really get away from each other because we were staying on a homestead. And what happens is I come home and then she's like, "Oh, I saw all that. You look like so much fun," but she doesn't see like the tired. And don't get me wrong, yes, I had fun, but I'm exhausted.
Oh yeah.
And then she's like, "You can do this and you can do that because you weren't even working."
I got the same problem, man. It's like if I do a full day shoot, I'm so tired, because you're mentally thinking about the shoot, you're mentally thinking about the gear and operating and this and that, and then you're physically running around like a loony bin, because picking up batteries, changing batteries, picking up the drones. I mean, the Inspire 3 is not a light drone. It's 4.5 kilos almost, right? So it's like you're picking it up, dropping it off, doing stuff, and then at the end of the day, you're overtired, and you can't fall asleep properly, and there is all these different things and shot lists that are going through your head, and you kind of.
This is the side of film and things that people don't understand or don't see.
100%.
And it's like that example of when I did crash the Inspire a little while ago, and it was a night shoot, right? So I think it was 8:30 or somewhere around there.
You were at my place at 11:30.
Yeah,
12
so
at night. Yeah,
like I had a shoot the next day, and I'm like, I have to cancel it, or I've got to find a working gimbal that I can use, because it's only the gimbal that was broken. Yeah. So I call Marty up that night, hoping that he's not away or in Sydney or wherever, and then also hoping I hope you don't have a job with your Inspire tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you were like, "Yep, it's all good, man. Come over, I'll help you out." Yeah. And it's like, and I love that about the industry, how everyone just wants to help and so forth. And it never used to be like that with drone people back in the day. Wow. It's becoming a bit better, but I was at your doorstep at 11 o'clock or something that night. Yeah. We're in your studio up here, and we've got the drone out and we're testing things and making sure they work and everything. And then the next morning I'm up at sunrise again. Lucky that shoot was actually right next to my house, so and we're on the beach and got to shoot it, and the drone was fine, and it worked great. And then
Yeah.
I had a few other jobs, and then that creates so much stress.
Oh yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what
Yeah,
am I going to do?
yeah.
And then the late nights.
Yeah.
And
And the
so
wife
forth.
turns around to you and she's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're not working. You have your
Yeah.
fun with this, just the remote control bloody aeroplanes and
Yeah,
whatever else.
exactly.
And it's just like, no, I am working.
We're big kids.
That's right. Yeah, we are big kids.
Yeah.
But when you came to my place the other day, and I was just like, reviewing the data logs, the flight logs, and I think like talking about the sort of tiredness and everything else, and I think, I mean, you're well organized and you know your stuff, yeah. And we were looking at your stick movements on that night. You were tired, and we were watching the I think it was the throttle, wasn't it? Like
it was throttle, yeah.
Yeah, you were pulling it down, and the drone was slowly coming down. Yet you didn't actually realize because you were losing a signal as well at the same time. So that was one of those things where, like when you're getting your drone licenses and everything else, CASA and like all the training that you do, they go, make sure you have rest, make sure you wear sunglasses, make sure you wear, you don't drink or, drugs or
you're
whatever else,
hydrated and
hydrated. So, and all of these things people don't realize, but they do play a huge part, you know what I mean, in that space. And I mean, operating long enough, you'll basically, sooner or later, if you don't look after yourself, shit goes wrong.
Yeah.
You know
I feel like that was a crazy run that I had at the start of this year, but you can only go for so long and so many days on a film set shooting like that because you just get completely exhausted and your set day might only be 10 or 12 hour day, but if you've got to drive 2 hours to get to that location and then drive home, like you're talking a really long day. And if you do that over multiple days, and then the part that people don't see is like you do that, you come home and it's 10:30 at night and you're like, I got to charge all my batteries or whatever it is, download data. If you're running a business, I might have to answer emails or do some kind of documentation
100%.
for a permit that some guy might need on Friday and it's Tuesday, and I'm shooting every other day and I can't do it in my lunch break.
Oh, that's right.
So this is a part of the job that people don't realize, and like, it's fun, but I feel like the only time I feel like I'm working is if I'm sitting in my office and I'm actually doing permits or paperwork or...
Well, that's the thing, like you do have to do a lot of... drones are still very restrictive in Australia, and, you have to create your JSA, so job safety assessments. You have to create flight plans, and you got to make sure your insurance is valid, and you got to provide all the insurance details to whoever is shooting or whatever else. So there's so many different aspects of it that people don't realize that goes in. When I rock up at a client location or shoot with the Inspire 3, they just look at it, oh, what a cool toy to play with. Yeah, but it's not. You know what I mean? So people just don't realize all that sort of stuff. But thanks for sharing.
Well, they balk at the price, and
they
don't understand that like we need licenses to fly the drone in the first place, and that costs money to do. We've got to do courses to do it. Whereas like, yes, a cinematographer or something might have went to university or school, but some of them didn't. Or if you're a grip or something like that, you don't technically go get any kind of documentation to say that you can do that, and it doesn't cost any money. So, and ours are ongoing as well. And then most people have insurances, but drone insurance is really expensive, and it's becoming more expensive.
100%.
And so it's tricky. Like there's so much to this business that people don't understand.
There's so much. Like, and you know what, like before, like, I mean, I started probably about 7-8 years ago now, and I love drones. My very first drone that I put together was the F550. I don't know if you know the hexacopter. Yeah. And now
the DJI red and white plastic thing.
That's the one, and I was so excited putting that together. And then, I've put it together, and I didn't actually do any jobs with it, but I think just after that, like a Phantom 1 came out, and I bought that as well, and then I had the Phantom 2. And slowly, I was just like, no, I can't work. This is just too dangerous, you know what I mean? And then all these regulations and everything else was coming into place as well, where you need your rep or your drone license, you need your REOX, and like at the moment it's just you have to. Australia is very restrictive in that space anyway. But you got to make sure safety is number one priority. And if you are tired and everything else, it's just, you got to be really on the ball. So, we're running out of time. I want to ask you a few other questions. So, Bear Films, what at the moment, what do you see yourself, 6 a year, 12 months from now on, with Bear Films? Because you have got so many cool jobs and a lot of big jobs coming through and everything else. Do you feel like you want to stick to the drone component, or do you feel like you want to sort of move on somewhere else, or do you feel like it's going to grow, it's going to shrink? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I found throughout the years I've seen other drone companies come and go. I feel like I'm very well established with my clientele and people that use me, so I don't feel like I'm going to go anywhere anytime soon in the terms of like quitting.
Beautiful.
So I'm definitely here to stay, and it's definitely what I'm meant to do on this planet, I feel. So moving forward though, it's a forever changing space, not just drones, but just film in general, and marketing and advertising and where it's at. A lot of what I do is mostly in the advertising space, so TV commercials. Yes, I've worked on some films and like Netflix series and things like that, but that's not what I chase. I kind of like more in the TVC land, so TV commercials, which is all around.
So you still enjoy, obviously, all the car commercials that are popping.
I love the car commercials. That's my like bread and butter, and I'm like, I wish, not wish, that's the wrong word to use, but there's some times where I'm like, maybe I should just become a production company, because it's really hard in the space of commercials, because it's with the as a drone company, you might only have the shoot might go for 4 days, but the drone component's only a half-day shoot to that component, and then I've got to look for another job. Whereas if you can find longer service jobs, then you've got more longevity in the business. So like if you're on a film and you're a second AC, so a camera assistant or something, they're required for the whole shoot. The shoot could go for 3 months. And in that 3 months' time, they've already teed up their next job and timed it to finish and start. So they've just got ongoing work that's very reliable. With this industry, it's very cutthroat. There's a lot of other people coming into the market, or cutting you down in price or so forth. So I feel lucky that I'm at the elite end of the chapter, because it's enabled me to get some really good clients and work in that space. And I feel like it's hard to get to this position. So
and you know what? It's not just hard, but it's number one. You need to know, like you were saying, networking. You need to know the products inside out. I mean, the way I was watching you when you're operating your Inspire, you could click on certain buttons that I didn't even know existed, on the screen, and you were creating this almost like a viewpoint that I was just like, oh wow, okay, I got to learn so much more about it. You know what I mean? So knowledge, product knowledge, and then obviously understanding. And like with myself, I do a lot of productions, but a lot more like smaller productions, and I don't advertise myself as well, but I know people know me in the industry and they come to me all the time. So I don't actually advertise, but people know me, and they still send me to all around Australia and doing whatever else. But it's the knowledge, it's the actual like experience that just takes you to that next level, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think going back a little bit is like, I think if you're trying to get into the industry and you want to become a drone person, in my eyes, unless you're like an XM2 or one of those bigger sharks in America that just operate drones, it's very hard to just be a drone operator and go, I only do drones and I don't carry cameras on the ground or anything like that, and actually make a living from it. So most people I talk to, including yourself, like, I mean, you've got a FX6 sitting on the ground there, so you obviously go shoot stuff that's on the ground, and that kind of fills in the gaps of being a drone operator.
100%.
For me, I'm known more for my drone side of things. So like I get more drone work than I do camera work, whereas some people are the other way around. So they get more camera work, but they can provide a drone. So they do a little bit of drone work. But to go back to the question you were saying before, like, I toy around with shooting on the ground. I don't call myself a DP, but I've DP'd car commercials and some really good gigs. It's not the direction that I'm heading. But if it comes across my way, then I'm never going to say no, and I feel quite capable and have the knowledge to do so. And I did film a lot when I was younger, doing the weddings and stuff like that. So I'm capable, but it's not my direction. But I'm always got my finger on the pulse, trying to like do something different. I got into doing some like live broadcast directing and things like that, just to try and, you know, pay the bills. And I got some good opportunities, and I'll just take them if I can, so that I can get stuff done. I do little kind of productions in the sense of like more corporate work. So like we did a video for Rebel Sport, you know, opening up in the Emporium, and where we would go shoot the whole thing, produce it, edit it. But it's on a lower end scale. I've never really done a TV commercial and taken care of the whole production in that sense. Production managed, yes, like managed the crew and brought people on and gave them their roles, and I'll help the producer of the production company run the people and the equipment, but never a production company where, say, Hyundai have come to me and said, can you produce this commercial? I think that's a different kettle of fish. And
I've noticed, I had a client ringing me up as well the other day, and they go, we want to do some training videos or whatever they want to do, and they've contacted a production company, and she was saying that they gave her such a ridiculous amount almost, that she was like, there's no way we can afford that.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm calling you. And I said to her, that's fine. My cost is going to be probably 1/3 of that.
Yeah.
But what you got to look at as well, the production company, you know, you've got multiple people with multiple different jobs, and those, you know, you talk to essentially, you know, one person, but there's a ton of people behind them. You know what I mean? So essentially, look, I call myself a freelancer as well, although I do trade under 1x1 Media. So same thing as yourself. You know what I mean? You trade under the Bear Film.
Yep.
Film.
Yeah, film.
Yeah, and but you know, obviously, you know, if you need extra people on board, then you get people on board. Simple as that. So there is different aspects of all of these different things, and it comes with knowledge. And you know, like you were saying, like same thing. You know, I do time lapses, I do FX6 work, I do lighting, and I do almost to a point where I'm a jack of all trades but master of none, but better than none.
I feel like that every day.
Yeah. So I think, you know, it's great to be in that space and enjoy it. And is there any? So if someone's trying to get into this sort of space, is there anything that you probably recommend to them in the final? Because we press for time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think like a lot of young kids have come up to me in that way before, and we spoke about Josh, and he's kind of like the person that I've been schooling recently. And when he came to me, he's an exceptional FPV pilot, but at the time he hadn't picked up a camera or knew anything about, you know, camera settings or whatever it was. He had a small interest in taking some photos. And he came to me, and I was kind of like schooling him along about how to get into the industry. And at this time, he kept nagging me. Like, he was one of those kids that, like, almost every week I'd have something in my inbox from him about, when can you take me on a job? And I'll do it for free. Yep. He was that kind of person. And he came to my house once to pick up or borrow something, and we had a little conversation out the front, and he's like, oh, how can I get into the industry, and like, what can I do? And I said to him, buy a camera. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. As long as it shoots some video, just buy a camera and just start filming some stuff. I said, learn how to master a camera and the settings and how to use it and where to point it. And I said, you can already fly the drone. That's a natural part of what you can do. Now you need to know how to do the filming aspect, and then you can bring the two together. And not everyone takes that on board, but within like 2 weeks, I think he had bought like a Blackmagic Pocket 4K. That was what he could afford. And you know, he's just a part-time barista at a cafe, and he could afford that. And then he actually made like a little short film that involved him as the character, and it went for like 2 minutes or whatever, but it was actually really good. Awesome.
And you know what, I think Blackmagic is probably one of those better cameras, because essentially it is still a cinema line camera, and it's very manual. You know what I mean? So you don't have autofocus on it. You don't have, certain parts like the FX6 does. And you need to learn about that exposure triangle. You need to learn about the focus. You need to learn about, the DNG and all the RAWs and other crap that comes with it. You know what I mean? And it's just fantastic.
And its operating system's quite functional and easy to understand. It's a very simple camera to operate in terms of navigating what settings you have to do. But
I totally agree, though. I think, picking up a camera, just doing something. I think you did a post the other day, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, something about, I don't care what film you produced, as long as you produced something.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with my head as well, because it's such a huge undertaking to create anything.
It is.
It's not just a drone component, but just to be able to go there, shoot it, light it, edit it, and then deliver it to even if it's a social media post or something like that. Yeah. And I think it's these days, if you can create something like that. I mean, I've got so many ideas in my head. It's just funny because I don't have the time to do it.
Neither do I.
Yeah, so there's so many different aspects of it, and
that's just one aspect. But the other one I would say would be, like, once you've got that part down and you're capable of filming something and delivering something, then in whatever aspect it be, whether it's a ground camera or an aerial cinematography, but then, like, the next part is network.
Yeah.
And, like, you got to get jobs. So, like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And that's the big question that everyone wants to know, I guess. And there's no technically right or wrong way to do so, but you just got to start gathering people's information, and that's key. And people come to me and ask me this question all the time, but I always say to them, like, especially if they're younger, maybe they're at uni or something like that, it's a good place to start in terms of a network, because you're in a class with other people that want to do the same thing. And you just start reaching out to different networks. So there's Facebook platforms, there's other people, there's meetups where people want to meet up and meet together. Look on places like starnow.com, where there's like short films being advertised for crew and things like that, where it might be for free, you might not get paid, but you're getting to work with equipment, you're getting to meet people, work on set, and that's the experience. So if you've got experience on a set, that will always trump everything, because
it's like you said, you got to be at the right place at the right time sometimes to be able to get that. You know what I mean?
But I feel like, because when I was trying to get into it a long time ago, I was a carpenter at the time still, and I was like, I'm going to try and do film. And then I started ringing up people, and I kind of I lived away from the city, which I didn't think helped. I didn't know the people. I was very, I don't know, not exposed to that world. So it was like, who do I talk to? I have no idea. I didn't go to uni to study film or anything like that, so I didn't have a group of people that I could hook up with. Had I known the information I do now, well then, I would have just started reaching out to people. Just I guess one of the big things too is I've taken a lot of people on from just a DM. So not everybody. I mean, you got to, I have certain vibes that I pick up from some people when they've messaged me or whatever, and I feel like, oh, I'd actually like to go have a coffee with this guy. And I've actually got a lot of good friends from that way in terms of people reaching out to me on socials, and then I might not meet up with them this week or next month or whatever.
That's pretty much how we met, right?
Correct.
I was doing the networking thing with the FPV guys. And obviously, I think one of the guys contacted you and say, hey, we're doing this FPV party, do you want to come down? And you were free on that time, and you were like, oh yeah, I'll come down and have a chat, have a snag or whatever else, and then fly a little bit.
And then we've kind of connected from there. And part of me doing those things is I'm a bit older now, and I've got a family and stuff, and I love FPV, and I would like to do it more as a hobby outside of work, and that was the opportunity that day where I was able to come down
to be the kid,
and the weather was nice, and it wasn't so much about just flying the drone. It was actually 50-50 about hanging out with dudes and just talking shit about stuff that we
all love.
We all love, and having a fly. And
it's actually funny you should say, because the other day I was talking to someone as well, and they go, I'm so busy, I don't have time to fly drones for fun anymore. And he goes, I don't break so many props anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a lot of props left over,
Yeah.
you know. But when you're flying freestyle and you're having fun and you're smashing it, and because I mean, FPV drones were made for smashing essentially,
yeah.
right? You break props and everything else, and you like I used to go through, I'd probably say, you know, 2 sets of props a week, you know what I mean, if not more. And now I haven't actually changed a prop for a long time on my quad, you know what I mean?
You get those periods.
But
I think the other thing would be to just like not. It's hard to say in my position because I have a family and stuff, but like, don't do it because you think you're going to make tons of money.
Yeah.
Do it because you love
Enjoy
it, and the money will come eventually if you're really good at it. So that's the most thing that I can say. So be passionate about what you're doing, and if you're not passionate about it, pick something else.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think, you know, if you want money, you got to get into banking or something. I don't know. But, you know, at the end of the day, same with me, you know, I got into it because I really enjoyed flying drones and, you know, creating videos and this and that. So it's one of those things where you really need to enjoy that space to be able to be in it. So
yeah, it's a fun space.
So running out of time. So the way people can find you is your website. So thebear.au. So thebear.au, and also Instagram, thebear_film. And go and check it out, guys. Raider does amazing drone work and FPV and Inspire and heavy lifting and all the other sort of stuff. So thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
and
cheers,
wish we could talk forever, but
I know. No,
we'll do that another time.
Maybe we'll do another episode.
Yeah, down the track.
Down the track, if you feel like it, and you know, come for a drive. So
yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Marty.
Thanks, mate. All the best.
Cheers.